Hello students, it's Mr. Potenski. We're here looking at 6.1 extra practice. That's on page 172. So we're going to get into this with the exponents. So some things to remember here is just some of those rules of exponents. So we are to do 2 through 24 even, so we're starting with number 2. So number 2, what we notice is it's the quantity -2 raised to the 0 power. So anything to the 0 power, remember, is equal to 1. Okay, anything to the 0 power is equal to 1. So if that's not in your notes somewhere, you should get that written down. For number 4, we have the quantity -4 raised to the -3rd power. So what does that tell us? Well, that actually tells us that this -3rd power, so we can rewrite that as 1 over the quantity -4 to the 3rd power. And then we can go through and take -4 multiplied together 3 times. So if we need to do that, -4, and remember shift 6 on the keyboard is raising something to the power. So -4 to the 3rd power is a -64. So we get 1 over -64. So here, okay, so we have -3, so it's negative, and then 3 to the -2 over 2 to the -3. So something to pay attention here. Right now, this negative is out in front. It is not being raised to the -2 power. So maybe you could rewrite this as like this, because this is going to be one of those common mistakes, is the base right here is only the 3. It is not the -3. So we have to be really careful and pay attention to those small details. So now this would be 2 or 1 over 2 to the 3rd, which when it's in the denominator, we end up putting the 2 to the 3rd in the numerator. So what we're going to get is 2 to the 3rd up here, and then 3 squared. Well, 2 times 2 times 2 is 8, so we get -8 in the numerator, and 3 squared is 3 times 3, so that is 9. So we get -8/9 as our answer to number 6. For number 8, we have 3 to the -1st over -5, that whole quantity to the 0. Anything to the 0 is 1, so we're going to be able to put 1 over 3 to the 1st, which is just 3, so we get 3 times 1, which is going to be 1/3, is our answer to number 8. Looking at number 10, we're going to go ahead and scroll down. We have a to the -8ths. So we can rewrite that as 1 over a to the 8th. And then that's as simplified as it will be. Next, we have 14m to the -4th, n to the 0. Well, what I like to figure out first, n to the 0 is just 1, so we're going to have 14 times 1 over m to the 4th. Okay, so we get 14 over m to the 4th. Remember to box that answer. It helps us understand. And these things, remember how we get to these different steps. So if you need to write a little bit of notes in there that this negative means it's going to go the opposite side of the fraction bar with positive, if that's what you need to or think about, you can do it that way. So We have 2 to the third. That's not going to change any. A to the negative third, well, we're going to put that down with a positive exponent. And then we're going to have 8 on top. B to the fifth on top times c to the 0. Well, that's just 1. So that's like that. And then let's go ahead and 2 to the third, that's 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. 8 times 8 is 64. And then we have b to the fifth over a to the third. Next, we have the quantity negative 2 raised to the 7th over negative 2 all raised to the 5th. So there's a couple ways to do this. We did learn where we could subtract 7 minus 5 and get negative 2 to the 2nd. Okay. And another way to think about this is if we have negative 2 to the 5th, so we're going to actually break this negative 2 to the 7th into, negative 2 squared. Because negative 2 to the 5th times the quantity negative 2 to the 2nd all over negative 2 to the 5th. Okay, that's going to reduce down to 1, and 1 times negative 2 to the 2nd. So negative 2 squared is positive 4, and we get 4 over 1, which would just be 4. So you can box that answer as well. Here's number 18. Here's another rule. Okay, so if you'll remember that we have that rule where q to the 5th all raised to the 3rd, what we could do is multiply. But just remember, just that basic definition of what is an exponent would tell us that we're multiplying what's inside those parentheses 3 times, and then we know q to the 5th times q to the 5th times q to the 5th. We'd add all 3 of those, and 5 plus 5 plus 5 is 15, and we still get q to the 15th. Box that answer. Here's some more similar things. So c to the 4th times c to the 3rd would give us c to the 7th on top over c to the 6th. 6. And we get c to the 7 minus 6, which is just c to the 1st, which is c, because we don't have to write that. Sorry about that. I was not scrolled down all the way. So I'll repeat that. We have c to the 4th times c to the 3rd is c to the 7th. Okay. And that quotient rule of our exponents, we can subtract 7 minus 6, the numerator's exponent minus the denominator's exponent when the base is the same. So we get 7 minus 6, so we get c to the 1st, and c to the 1st is just c. Remember that if there's nothing written, it's to the 1st power. So let's go ahead and go on to number 22. Number 22. We have negative third, or negative 3f all to the negative third. So what we can do with that is, this is again that quotient rule. We end up taking each of the parts, or we could think about that as negative 3f times negative 3f times negative 3f. Okay, so that's a negative 3 multiplied together 3 times, and f multiplied together, make sure that's a 3, or negative 3 times, and then f multiplied together negative 3 times. Okay, so there's several ways to go about this, but then we get 1 over negative 3, 3 to the negative 3 to the third is going to be negative 27 f cubed. When we go ahead and box that answer. Okay, let's look at number 24. It says a rectangular prism has a length x, width of x over 2, and a height of x over 3. Which of the expressions represents the volume of the prism? Select all that apply. So what we want to do first is think about what is the volume of this prism. We have, remember, volume is going to be length times width times height, right? So we're going to get x times x over 2 times x over 3. And we're going to go ahead with the x and put it over 1. So remember, when we're multiplying fractions, we multiply all the numerators together and all the denominators. So we're going to get x times x times x, which is x cubed. And then 1 times 2 times 3, which is 6. And that just happens to be 1 times 2 times 3 is 3 factorial. I don't know, that might be something new for you, but something neat to think about. Okay, so we're trying to figure out which one of these 4, if there's just 1, 2, 3, or all 4 of them, are equivalent to x cubed over 6. So we know 6 to the negative 1, well, that's going to be putting it down in the denominator, so we're going to get x cubed over 6, which is what we got there. So a is 1. Here we get 6 to the negative 1 times x to the negative 3. Well, that end up being 1 over 6 x cubed. So that's not 1. Put an x there by that. Okay, and then we have 6 x to the negative third all to the negative first, so we end up getting 1 over 6x to the negative third, and then flip that x to the negative third up on top, so we make that positive over 6. So we get x to the third over 6, which is what we're looking for. So C is good. We have 2 to the negative first times 3 to the negative first times x cubed. So we're going to get x cubed on top, and then 2 times 3 on bottom, which is x cubed over 6, which is what we were looking for. So D is also equivalent. So A, C, and D is what we should have found for all that represent the volume of the prism. So that is all for today. Check back with your teachers, make sure they don't have anything else, make up any homework assignments, stay safe, and have a good Monday or Tuesday.